15 degrees, you can see your breath. Out here in the lake effect, breaking tables like it's poetry. Where else would you rather be? Pinto, Ron, Elvis, and the Lay Poncho. The members that you need to know. 'Cause once you out here, now your family. Where else would you rather be? Where else would you rather be?
Welcome into the Nickel City Crew. I am your host, Rob Crippen. Please like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Nickel City Crew. This episode, along with all of our episodes, are presented by Crippen Legacy Entertainment here on Spreaker and StreamYard. We're so glad that you're joining us for some of your Buffalo Bills and NFL content again today. And as always, these are my Bills thoughts said out loud.
It's a vibe so ridiculous. Since 12 plus 83 was 6. The shout rocking like a symphony. Where else would you rather be?
All right, let's get straight to it. Really excited for tonight's episode. It's funny because I am normally not a big draft guy. I had joked about it at the end of last week's episode that I'm not really, more of a draft guy. I'm just more of a just show me the players, tell me the numbers, tell me when training camp starts, and then I'll pick up from there and watch some highlights. And it's funny because we joked about it at the end of last week's episode. Brandon Beane has got my full attention. I think he spoke with the media today down at One Bills Drive. I know that Sean McDermott did as well, along with Josh Allen, and everybody's just covering overall of the offseason, and everybody's getting back to work and the OTAs, and everybody's attending. And I think McDermott said about 95% participation, which is nice. So football is almost in the air. It's not back in the air, but it's almost in the air. And I can't wait, as always. Joining me tonight for the first ever Nickel City Crew mock draft, riding shotgun as always, my co-host Adam Dump Truck Rupsick. Check him out on Instagram and Twitter at Adam Rupsick, RUPCZYK. Holla at the crew, DT. What's good, DT? I mean, we got a little mock draft tonight. I'm excited about it.
What's up? What's up, Rob? What's up, Nickel City? We're back, and yeah, dude, let's rock and roll. We're talking mock draft. I'm with you. I'm usually a little more laid back when it comes to the draft, and really since we got 1-7 in 17, back a few years ago, really the drafts were quiet. When we were up in the front, it was a little more exciting, to see who we were getting in that top 10 round. When hopefully it was our next quarterback, and it never seemed to be a quarterback, until it was Josh Allen. So I was kind of with you in the past couple of years because we haven't really had holes to fill. Now we got a couple, so I'm a lot more interested in. I mean, I do 50 mock drafts for my fantasy football team, so I guess we could lock in and do one for the team that we invest our lives into for the actual draft. So let's rock, baby.
I love it. Shout out to Scott Reed over there at the K-Gun Report. I was asking him, I was reaching out to him last night and this morning trying to figure out, hey, how do you do these mock drafts? How do you figure all this stuff out? So we're going to do it tonight for sure. We're excited about it. And again, it's just funny because I am just not that guy. But Brandon Beane has got my full attention. I'm sitting straight up in my chair, and I'm paying full attention to everything that's going on ever since the Stefon Diggs trade. Had a lot of fun last week, DT, getting together with Robin Mundy and getting together with Justice General, and it felt good to kind of cleanse it and get everything out. And then I saw today that Brandon Beane was at the podium. Sean McDermott was at the podium. 17 was at the podium, so everybody had a chance to come in. And obviously, Stefon Diggs was one of the the main topics, and everybody kind of kept the company line and towed the company line. And it was funny because when I was sitting there at lunch listening to some of the press conferences, it was like everybody was very careful to make sure that they they spoke glowingly and they spoke all the just pleasantries, and it was very nice to see. However, that it's funny because they're not telling you everything that they really feel, and I understand that that's part of the game, but it was just funny to see everybody had the company lines today, and appreciate his contributions and yada yada yada. I think Brandon Beane was asked directly how Josh felt when he heard the news that that Stephon Diggs was being traded. He said, "I don't want to get into that." So it harkened back and made me think of Robert Monday, and made me think of Justice General from last week, because we're not going to hash it out again. Obviously, we already did that, but it was just funny to see, DT, that everybody just kind of played it cool, kept everything close to the vest.
Chalk, right? I mean, you go in, and this is after all the kind of drama leading up in the past 2 years. These are questions they've only answered, and now, all right, it's over. We're gonna come in, we're gonna put it to rest, and they kind of did what we did the past couple episodes of putting it to rest and staying chalk all the way through. One thing I've noticed, and Nickel City kind of chip in and do your homework for next week's episode of this, because I've noticed that Josh, in these press conferences, it all I started noticing last year when that real awkward one happened, when Diggs missed training camp or mini camp or whatever.
I love him.
And
I love him.
Josh, he's my brother. Oh, I love him. Yeah,
I love him.
Yeah. And
he almost cussed. He had to stop himself from cussing.
Exactly. He just his mannerisms in when normal interviewing, anything but Stephon Diggs. He's pretty stoic, doesn't, answers the questions, has some enthusiasm, but keeps it pretty stoic. But Stephon Diggs comes up, and from last year all the way through the season, all the way through, it was like he was trying to, it's like he's trying to extra be in tune to the question. He's like his eyes open a little wider. He nods his head a little bit to like he's interested in the question. Like, yep, I'm listening. Yep. Just go back, watch some press conferences from 1-7, and specifically when you start talking about Stephon Diggs, it's a physical change in his demeanor. And I'm not saying that means there was a deeper problem than we're trying to figure out. But I think he knew it was a touchy situation, and he was trying to be as clean as possible on the press conference side.
Yeah.
To ensure that everything was good on that end too. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that he he understands that he's in the spotlight. I think that he's noticed that for sure as he's ascended and as he's become the face of the team. Sean McDermott even called him the face of the franchise. So I think he recognizes his place within the franchise, and then with that, obviously, any type of controversy, he wants to keep people off of the scent. He wants to throw people off of the scent. So I think that it's just a part of the job of just making sure that you're keeping everything just copacetic, crossing all T's, dotting all I's, to make sure that any type of in-house drama or bullshit stays just that, in-house drama. So it's fun. Now listen, DT, as we transition, I mean, draft is 1 week away from tonight, DT, next Thursday. And I think it's in Motown, right? And I'm on the wide receiver train, DT. I've been on it. I know that Jeremy White of WGR kind of coined that phrase, and it's been going on for some years now. And I'm really a part of the wide receiver train. I think that it's an important thing today, and we're going to get to it in a little bit about some of the comments that Brandon Beane made today about specifically about wide receiver one. But I'm on the train. I think that I just really want them to get it right. Obviously. And it's one of those situations where, because of the reason that I have never really paid attention to the draft, it's just, you had said it last week, DT, that the draft is just like a game of craps, man. It's red or black, man. You put your money on the table, throw down that little white ball, and then that thing is spinning around, and you have no idea what's going to happen, and you're just hoping. And it's just like, I just hope that we hit the pick, to be honest with you. And it was funny because Brandon Beane had talked about today that wide receiver one is not really essential to the development of the offense. And I raised my hand, as I'm listening, and call bullshit. Like, I even said it on Twitter, like, that's bullshit. Now, I understand that he's got, again, we talked about, he's got certain things to say, and Josh Allen's got certain things to say, but I have to believe that with Stephon Diggs out of the door and Gabe Davis, 150 plus catches that we talked about last week out of the door, they have got to be supremely focused on finding a way to fill that void. Now, maybe you're not going to get a Stephon Diggs right off the bat, Justin Jefferson, like the Vikings did when they traded for Stephon Diggs and gave up that pick. But man, like, you got to get close. Like, you've got to find a way to get some type of production. Curtis Samuel's not it. Mac Hollins, all those different guys are not the answer. So I'm trying to figure out, I understand that there are different things that the GM has to say and the coach has to say and the quarterback has to say, but I called bluff on that one. Like, I was just not. I think it's a little bit of gamesmanship. There's no way that they don't know that we need a wide receiver one. I don't think there's any way.
Yeah, I mean, and we were talking heavy on, the wide receiver train before Diggs was traded even. This was kind of a no-brainer pick to, very, very full around the Mafia, definitely a Nickel City crew of taking a receiver in the first round, even without Stephon Diggs. I spoke on it had to be a succession plan. Well, the succession plan's now he's gone, so it's got to be somebody. So, I mean, the class is rich, the class is deep. There's a lot of opportunity everywhere you look at it, in the very front, in the middle, and the back end. There's opportunity, and that's probably cliche to say, but that's probably the case in most drafts. But definitely, in the wide receiver room. In the past couple of years, these wide receiver classes have been coming in a little different, a little more polished, a little more ready for the NFL than in previous years. It take a few years to kind of take off. These guys are coming in as great wide receiver ones kind of out of the get-go. I mean, you saw plenty of names last year do it, and, the year before and the year before. So the league is continuing to get full of young superstar talent, and, that's where the Bills are going, and they got rid of the old. Now it's in with the new, and I don't know about saying that a wide receiver one isn't essential to the offense, because if you don't have one and you start not producing, what's the first thing that everyone's going to say, including, the coaching staff and everybody, is going to be getting wide receiver one. So, I mean, there's, I think, the dilemma of what to do with that 28 pick, if we go up or down, and we'll get into that tonight, but it's a really rich class and receivers are coming in a lot hotter than they used to be. So I don't think it's not even a question. It wasn't a question before Diggs left. Now it is even more. Like, it's a receiver round one.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because, when you talk about, the things that they say and the press conferences, and you had talked about some things that you had noticed about 17 at the podium, everybody's going to say those types of things. I think that maybe it was, parts gamemanship in respects to the fact that he doesn't want to tip his hand. He doesn't want somebody to kind of, put him over the rake, so to speak, or, fuck him over when it comes time and he's calling to try to trade up. If that's what he decides to do, he doesn't want anybody to have any leverage. Well, I know you need a wide receiver, so you got to pay me more. Like, screw off, man. Like, you're not going to take advantage of me just because of the fact that you think that I need something. And I understand that that's all a part of the games of shit of the draft. And I do like that part of the draft. I like the fact that they're maneuvering and there's different, strategies that are employed in this whole thing. So I get that. But to say that we don't need it and it's not essential, I thought was a little bit too far. So because he said that, that's exactly what, kind of tipped me off to the fact that I think that he's doing that to kind of protect his chips, to make sure that he's not taking advantage of down the road. Yeah. And now it's funny because when you look at the draft, DT, one of the main reasons that I've never been a draft guy is that it's funny that we all become experts, not all of us, but a lot of people become experts this time of year, and everybody wants to tell you what they know. It's funny because, we have no clue what these guys are going to be. And I thought of, an analogy would have been that, if we had a clue what the draft was going to be and what these prospects were going to turn out to be, then, from draft, round one, pick one, all the way to Mr. Irrelevant, we would just draft, based on, ability and contribution to the teams. And it would just go down the list, one all the way to, whatever the case may be for Mr. Irrelevant. Obviously, that's not the case. Brock Purdy showed us that. We always have Tom Brady fans that'll show you and say scoreboard, because not only did the Patriots, pass on him 6 times, but other team passed on him 6 times before he obviously was drafted. So I think it's interesting because everybody just seems to have an idea, and they have strong conviction, I think is the best word to say it. Everybody, well, this guy's going to work and this guy's going to work. And it just doesn't work that way, DT. And I like to lend, again, I fancy myself as a realist. I like to lend a little bit of sensibility to it. And because of the fact that we have no clue what these guys are going to do, I think that I almost just leave it. That's why I just leave the draft up to the professionals, the guys that do go on those scouting trips, the guys that do spend the time to go to those colleges to watch these guys play, because even them, even they don't know what the hell's going on. And I just think that sometimes we get wrapped up with prospects that we like or that we're familiar with or that we maybe watched a lot of. I'm a Michigan fan, so JJ McCarthy is definitely better than Jaden Daniels. Like, you have no, we have no clue. So it's just interesting to look at the dichotomy between it because I just think that it's a big time crapshoot, like you talked about.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm more the thing of not the player themselves. I mean,
Okay.
selfishly, the player themselves, like, what can that player do to make Josh Allen better? That's
right.
kind of my thing. Especially when it comes to wide receivers specifically, right? It's not you're going to come in and be good in the league. It's like, can the ball be put on you and you take it? Can the ball
Right.
can you become you don't have to be a long career and all these stats of like, what are you going to do to make 1-7 better? And that's how I'm kind of looking at it. Because I'm like you, like, I don't know, you don't know work ethic, you don't know a lot of these things just by like straight up highlight reels and watching these guys on Saturday. And then the simple things of, guys that like Bo Nix, we're not in the quarterback market, so I can kind of go into this, right? But Bo Nix played in the SEC at Auburn, and just got kind of crushed, like sucked. And then goes out to the Pac-12 and
lights it up.
He's good. And granted, they don't play a lot of defense out there. Okay, whatever the case is. But, does that say that he's really not good or he just needed to be in the right situation to make himself? And so, that's what makes 17 better and putting the people in the right situation, as cliche as that is. But, you never know what's going to happen. If Sammy Watkins would have been better somewhere else, if anything would have, any of those drills draft picks that were bust would have turned out to be good, somewhere else and vice versa. And that's why everyone gets all up in arms when we traded that 10th pick away to get Trey White at 27 and the Chiefs took Mahomes. It's like, you could have Mahomes. Well, who knows if Mahomes would have been Mahomes? So that's what you got to look at as well of, how do they fit and what makes our team better. Selfishly, I don't care about you coming in. I don't care if you're going to be a good player. I need you to make us better by, the skills you bring.
I love it. Yeah. Shout out to Ricky on the chat. We've got 716 Sports Blizzard as well. My man Robbie from Buffalo Fan Base as well joining in tonight. And Ricky is right. It's funny because when we're looking at it, what the hell are we going to do, DT, with this pick at 28? And is it going to be a trade up scenario? Is it something where Brandon Beane stands pat? Because I'm with Ricky. I don't want to waste too much of the future, trading up. And I talked about that. The Stephon Diggs trade kind of brought that to a head for me. I was already more, cautious of trading up because of Sammy Watkins and different things like that. And, you trade up for Sammy Watkins, but there's all these other great receivers behind him that you passed on. And then you had to give up the draft capital to move up. And then he obviously doesn't pan out. He wasn't bad for the Bills, but it just didn't work out because we didn't have really a quarterback with EJ Manuel at the time. It's funny. What's going to happen as we transition? Because I mean, I really feel like Brandon Beane can go any way on this whole thing. I know that he likes to trade up. I know that that's in his nature. He's aggressive, especially if he sees somebody that he likes. He admitted today he does not have 28 first round grades. Rarely do they. NFL teams on average, DT will average around 17 to 20 first round grades per year. So there's not, when you're looking at this draft thing, we're about to do this mock draft in a moment. There's not 32 first round grades, for these teams. So they've got their dry erase boards and they'll rank these guys 1 to Mr. Irrelevant. But as they group them by rounds, there's, 15, 16, 18 first round grades. Brandon Beane admits that there's not 28. Now, I don't know if that's him softening us up to let us know, hey, I'm getting ready to trade up. So be ready because I'm getting ready to move up to get my guy. Or if it's just him, just being honest, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have 28 guys that I would put a first round grade up on the board on our whiteboard here at One Bills Drive. So what do you like? What does your gut tell you about Brandon Beane and about moving up or standing pat? Because I think that almost anything is on the table, including, and I know everybody wouldn't want to hear this as we're doing a mock, but including trade down. I know nobody wants to hear that, but I think that's a possibility too.
Yeah, you're saying, Luke, get rid of, when you say trade down, get rid of first round pick going to the second round.
I don't think it's beyond.
I mean, my gut says what history says, and that's going to be we trade up. We trade up. Hey, Stephen Cavanaugh, there you go. We trade up 3 or 4 picks, get the guy we want, in that, 23, 24, 25 range. And that's, what he's done since he's been in the league as our GM. So I think that's what's going to happen now, because there's going to be, with so many rich names, there's going to be one of those names you're like, ooh, that guy's a little later than I thought he was going to. And then that's an opportunity to kind of go up and get it. I don't think you should trade up any more than 4 or 5 spots for anything but a quarterback. I mean, if you need a franchise quarterback, do what you got to do. Right. But anything else, I'm a firm believer in not going up too high. So my gut says Beane just going to do what he always does, go up a few spots, get somebody that's sexy enough at that 23, 24 range.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, you can't put it past him to move up. We've already seen that a part of his nature, in addition to the fact that, him standing pat might not be a bad idea. And then, accumulating some more picks, picking up that 3rd round pick that they thought that they were going to get as that comp pick. Maybe that's something that they try to recoup, trade back. That's not going to make anybody happy. I understand that everybody's going to be pissed. Everybody's got their draft parties next week and stuff like that. So we'll see how it goes. Now, as we transition, DT, we will skip next week for the draft. We'll let everybody enjoy it and do whatever you do. Like I talked about, the draft parties and different things like that, the get-togethers. We have been invited, DT. We've been invited to hang out with the guys from the K-Gun Report the week following the draft. So I think that's what we're going to do, Nickel City Crew. Look for us. We'll obviously put out some information on that as well. But they've got a little post-draft party that they're going to be doing, showing their little initial reactions on the draft picks and different things like that the following week. I'm down for that. They have invited us both, DT, and I think it would be a good opportunity to cross-pollinate, spread Nickel City Crew to another different, genre and another different audience as well. So I think we're going to do that, DT. So I'm excited about the draft as well coming up next week. DT, the more quarterbacks, the merrier. I mean, I keep hearing about JJ McCarthy. I told you I'm a Michigan fan, and I did not think that he was a 1st round pick or anything like that. Nothing special. He wasn't really asked to do anything special, so I've never really seen him do anything special, but he's moved up the board. And, the debate about Jaden Daniels, and then are the Patriots going to trade out at number 3, or are they going to stay put? I think their GM today said that he's open to offers, but, he's still looking at these quarterbacks and different things like that. I'd love some juicy trade-ups, DT. I'd love some juicy move around the board and different things like that. More receivers that go down the board, the better. I mean, I'm all with it, man. I am all with it.
Yeah, and the contradicting point there is, I mean, the front half of this draft is going to be obviously loaded up with quarterbacks. A lot of those, teams in the top 5, 6 need franchise quarterbacks, so they're all going to be quarterbacks. But then what's the next thing, right? You get a lot of teams that with this wide receiver class being so sexy, a lot of teams that don't need a quarterback say, okay, now I need to give my quarterback somebody to throw to. Right. So then that makes receiver the second scariest position, like for sitting at 28 and wanting a receiver. You're going to see runs on receivers. I mean, that's just going to be part of it. And as we saw last year, all those guys were kind of really pushed back until that 19, 20, 21. And then they all went, in
right before us
in sync, right ahead of time. So I don't think it's going to be like that this year. I think it's going to be pushed back and then it's going to go. But I don't think it's just there's different levels of, of these receiver classes that, we're going to start seeing. So, it's going to be tough. 28 is a tough spot to be when there's this much sexy stuff going on the board.
That means you're good.
Yeah, we're going to have to be patient. Because it's going to be cool to see all these quarterbacks go. But then just know receivers are coming right after, and that probably in that same sequence.
Yeah, it's funny, and Ricky's right. The O-line they say this is one of a big time O-line tackle rich draft. So you're going to see some old offensive linemen go as well early in the draft. But it does make me nervous for sure. I'll be looking, I think that the draft really starts at 4 or 3 or even 3, depending on what, you believe with the reports coming out of New England. But at 4, the Cardinals, do they trade out of that pick? Do they let a quarterback needy team come up like Minnesota or something like that, come up and get their guy? Even if they do take Harrison Jr., then you've got, like the Chargers, like right after, they don't need a quarterback. Harbaugh is building a squad, and he's let a lot of his high-priced veterans go, like Mike Williams and different things like that. So maybe he is interested in moving back.
Keenan Allen,
yeah, Keenan Allen, exactly. So maybe they're interested in moving back. So, I don't think that there's going to be anybody that's going to have a tough time having partners, so to speak. If you're looking to go up, or if Brandon Beane specifically is looking to go up, I think he's going to have somebody to play, to tango, they said, So I think he's going to find a dance partner, but it's a situation where, just like you said, like the wide receiver run happens, and when it does, you better be on ahead of the curve, so to speak, because you could get left out. I think that Dalton Kincaid was not their first option. Again, they were going to come out at the press conference, and just like today, they're going to say all the right things, and they're going to tell you that he was our last first-round grade, or whatever the case may be, or we jumped and traded up to get him because we just had to have him. I think that he was more of a pick out of circumstance. I don't think that they expected, Jackson Smith and Jigba and all of those guys just to go as Zay Flowers. They literally, you're right. They went bing, 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 bing. And then all of a sudden it's over and you've got nothing left. So because of that, I think that let's find the best pass. Okay. Who's the best pass catcher? Okay. This guy Kincaid from Utah can really catch the ball. Maybe we'll just switch to some more 12 personnel. So I think that was more of a situation where they kind of got caught with their pants down, so to speak, didn't want to trade up too far. And then all of a sudden it just kind of crumbled in front of them. That makes me a little bit scared and a little bit nervous. But as we shift, DT, who is your favorite wide receiver prospect? Because one of the things that I'm struggling with, and one of the things that I do not like about the draft process, and this goes back to Cam Newton, which I felt a lot of personal ways about, not because of being down here in Charlotte, but just like when I heard people talking shit about his smile not being genuine, and I was like, okay, wait a minute, you guys are literally trying to, and these are young men who are getting ready to change their lives. They're getting ready to come into, generational wealth for a large part of them if they're smart with their money on that first contract, where their lives are changed, their families' lives are changed. It's like hitting I talked about it last week, hitting the football lotto, and they just pick at these guys. And one of the parts of the draft process that I do not like is like how they pick at these guys. And it's funny because I don't know who your favorite prospect is, DT, but whoever you say, I've got notes here that I can talk shit about all of them, because that part of the draft is really picking up. I heard some crazy shit about AD Mitchell most recently. And it just down the line it goes, man. They will find anything. They will find anything. They'll talk to old girlfriends. They'll talk to anybody to figure out some dirt on you. And it's just, sometimes it just makes me feel like politics. Like it can get rough out there for these draft prospects, man. You don't have to be Laramie Tunsil with a gas mask anymore to just do dumb shit. They'll find something that is not even, not even anything, and they'll weaponize it against you.
It's a funny thing, right? I mean, put us back to my last year of college, and if I had people nitpicking me on who I was as a person at that point in my life,
when you get ready to take a job,
full blown degenerate, and and Stephen Kavanaugh, I'd listen to here. He knows what it. If we had a judge on 8th Street up in Oswego State, judged us all one by one, and
you never would have got hired.
Man, dude, the fast ain't Purdy, that's for sure. So,
oh my God,
it's a funny concept, definitely.
Absolutely,
but tis the business. I mean, you're going in and going to be offered, multi-million dollars, and
right,
and so you need to get picked up and picked apart. It's exactly like politics when it comes to the end here, for sure. Teams making stuff up to try to move teams away from guys that they want.
I think that happens a lot more than we know. Yes.
Yeah. And something like, I think it went back to when Harbaugh got hired, and he was being slick and say like, oh, JJ McCarthy is the best quarterback in this draft.
So that's the best work I've ever seen.
Because you don't need a quarterback. Yeah, you don't need a quarterback in he doesn't need a quarterback in LA. Funny. So that it was just funny to hear stuff like that. And like we talked about earlier, Brandon Beane saying, oh, wide receiver is not essential, but he better be looking at a wide receiver, right? So it's a funny thing kind of picking these guys apart and rolling. But back to your original question, my number one wide receiver prospect in this draft, and it has been the whole time, it has been since November of last year, is Rome Odunze out of Washington.
Ooh, yeah.
He's my guy, Rob.
He's a beast.
He's probably too up there, but he could breathe the Buffalo air, man. He's a beast. He does all the intangibles that make you good, and it just looks like he's got the grit to get it done. And I watched a lot of Washington games this year, really before they were number one in the country and going for the national championship. It definitely he's stepped out to me a lot more than these other guys who definitely have talent and got some good stuff on tape. But this guy
Yeah.
has that leadership, that gamer, that grind, that I liked
Got
his
that
stuff on
dog in
Diggs,
him.
to be honest.
Got that dog in it. I was
So
about to
yeah,
say, yep.
yeah. What are they dogging in Doomsday for?
I don't know
What
about
do
the
they got
Doomsday.
on him?
I haven't heard much about him. I was talking more about the guys that are in the Bills' wheelhouse. So, AD
Okay.
Mitchell, I guess, has diabetes, and in addition to
What?
having diabetes, I guess that he is not responsible about it. They say, and then I guess that he's a little bit uncoachable. And I got into it with a couple people on Twitter this week. They were saying, "Oh, I don't want another diva," and this and that. I'm like, "Well, can we please stop using the word, And the conversation goes left or whatever the case may be. But can we stop using that phrase? Because just because he, something comes out about him doesn't make him a diva. And like we just use that term way too loosely for me, for my personal taste. But yeah, AD Mitchell, I guess, is a little bit tough to coach. We've already heard that I guess he even admitted at the combine that he does not run routes, I guess, at 100% throughout a drive. He says that he wants to be able to sustain his energy throughout the drive. So because of that, he is not going to burn himself out, so to speak. And I don't know if that necessarily is something that sits well with McDermott, how he's always.
I saw that both ways. I saw the combat to that of people saying like he's got lazy tape, he's got lazy routes, but then
Yes,
it was
when he
kind
does,
of like
I guess specifically when the ball's not coming to him, he won't run the route.
Exactly, and that's kind of how. And they were saying like Texas was kind of like that. It was such a quick paced offense. They were kind of almost taught to like relax when it wasn't your play because we're going to need you to explode on the next play or whatever.
Okay.
But I don't know, man. If to that point, it's the big leagues. It's the NFL, man. If you're not running good routes, if you're lazy out there, you're not going to play.
Right.
So
yeah.
It's not anything to worry about, but him. If that's truly, if you are doing that, you're not gonna get on the field. So I'm not worried about things of that nature of like people not doing one thing or another because it's not like they're going to be on the field doing those things.
Sure.
If you're not doing them, you're not on the field.
All right. Well, that's AD Mitchell. I guess he's got diabetes and he's not a good manager of it. And then they're wondering if he's going to be even more lax when he doesn't have people, hounding him about it. Now, I could have swore the Bills have nutritionists. I could have swore they've got people, in the field house that are going to be taking care of those types of things and helping him out to stay on top of that thing. So I don't know. Again, like you said, it cuts both ways. Ladd McConkey, he's too little. I've heard that, a lot. Now, I do see that he's a little bit smaller in stature, and I'll give you that because he's white. I instantly think of Edelman. I'll think of Wes Welker. I'll think of Wayne Corbett. You know what I mean? And that is not fair because some people say that he's got feet like Antonio Brown, which is crazy because if we can find an Antonio Brown, then I definitely want the Bills to sign up for that. So I think it's a situation where it just cuts both ways. He's a little bit undersized. They said that he's going to struggle against press man. Xavier Legette, they say they're talking shit about him. DT saying that he's a one-hit wonder. He had one good year at South Carolina last year. All of his other tape was shitty. Never really popped. And everybody's worried about his production as he comes into his rookie year coming up, and he's older as well. So that's another knock on him. Xavier Worthy. For me, I know that he sometimes reminds me of a Roscoe Parrish, but they say that this guy is not just track speed. What did I always talk about? I don't want just track speed. I want sustainable football speed. Can you transfer that 40 time over to the football field? And they say, some people say that he can. So we'll see. Brian Thomas Jr., they say that he's twitchy. He's nice, but that he might cost too much money. Just, what Ricky was talking about in our comment section before. I don't want to mortgage too much. I mean, if we've got to go up, to 10 picks, okay. Well, we've got to go 15 picks just to get a guy because the big three guys are gone. And now Brandon Beane is panicking and he wants, he's got to have Brian Thomas Jr. and he's first round this year, third rounder, and then next year's first. Like, man, just wait, just sit back and wait, to the second round or something like that, or maybe even trade back to get some more picks. So I think that there's something that you can really poke holes in all these different guys, DT. I think that I like AD Mitchell the best, but I'll be honest, like I'm a prisoner of it as well. Some of the shit that's been talked about is kind of scaring me off a little bit as well. I do know that McConkey is a little bit too small for my liking, but then the Antonio Brown comparison, and I'm like, well, I would really love a guy like that. So it's just interesting, DT. I don't think that there's any perfect prospect outside of those top three. I think that those guys are clearly the the cream of the crop, so to speak. And it's a crapshoot, DT. I'm nervous, man. It's a crapshoot. I have no idea.
I'll ask you this, Rob. Would you rather? And I'm not saying that I guarantee this is happening, like in the draft. So if people get upset, like, oh, that'll never happen. Just hear me out here.
Okay.
Would you rather have pick Brian Thomas at 28,
Ooh,
Brian Thomas Jr. at 28,
if he lasted that long,
or trade back and get Ladd McConkey and Xavier Legette? Somehow you can get them both. I mean, they probably wouldn't, because if they trade back, they probably draft another position, right? But just figurative, straight up. Would you rather have Brian Thomas, who's probably the leader of this second tier group? Would you rather have him at 28 or Xavier Legette and Ladd McConkey? 2 or 1?
Oh man, I think that I want one. My gut tells me to play the percentages. A better hit rate if you've got 2 guys to try from.
Sure.
But the fact that you said at 28 means that something happened in the draft where we did not have to trade up. And I love that scenario. I like Brian Thomas even enough to trade up. Like I said, just not too much draft capital spent. But if we could stay at 28 and grab him, it might be that might be my pick. But you got me on that one. I think that I would like to trade back to play the percentages, better hit rate chance if I go ahead and get 2. But I heard that Brian Thomas is really special. I heard that he's a freak athlete. So I'm down with that. If we don't have to trade up for him, for whatever reason, the draft board fell that way. I know we're getting ready to do our mock. I think I would have to lean towards that, because they say that he's truly a special athlete, and I'm down with that.
All right.
Now, as we transition and before we start our mock, and to close the show, DT, I have a question, because the wide receiver train brings this to light, and it's something that I think that we should all be prepared for. It's a part of the draft process. There's no way to know exactly what's going to happen. How pissed are we going to be, DT, if we do not take a wide receiver in round 1? I think that I think that Bills Mafia should be prepared, not because I'm thinking of it necessarily as the most likely scenario, but one of the things that I noticed today when Brandon Beane talked about it, again, I think that it's more of him being gamesmanship and having some gamesmanship to him when he says that it's not essential for Josh Allen to have a wide receiver 1. I think that that's mostly BS, but I would not put it past McDermott to draft a defensive player in round 1. I just wouldn't. Somebody had mentioned O-line, and I just think that's out of the question. I think O-line, safety, cornerback, those are all they should all be ruled out for round 1. I do not think that those are realistic opportunities for the Bills in round 1. I think it's wide receiver, it's defensive end, it's defensive tackle, and that's pretty much it for the first round. I just wouldn't put it past Sean McDermott. I know that he has influence in that room. His voice does matter. DT, how mad are we going to be if it's not a wide receiver in round 1? Because I think that there's a chance. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I do think that there's a chance that it's not a wide receiver round 1.
Definitely a chance.
I think people are going to be mad.
Man, yeah, I would be. I mean,
I think because of the Diggs trade heightened everything for me. I would not be acting like this if both of them were not here. I think with Gabe Davis just going to Jacksonville, I could deal with that. Yes, locker room guy, all world in the locker room, captain, voted last year, first time. Great guy, but he's limited, and we saw some of his limitations with his route tree. The fact that you let him go and then you trade Stephon Diggs, man, it's like what I don't know, man. There's like a big neon sign hanging outside of One Bills Drive that's like we're taking a wide receiver, and I just don't know how Brandon Beane skirts that. I just don't know how he gets around it.
And because we're so heavy on the wide receiver train, really, I've never even looked at anybody else, right? I would like other names like in all these mock drafts. I literally just blank out every other name. Like when you're reading them and looking through them, it's like, okay, these quarterbacks, and then receiver, and then some linemen, some interior. I'm not even reading the names of these guys.
I understand. I'm the same way.
And I think that's majority of Nickel City and the Mafia is doing the same thing. Granted, I hope One Bills Drive isn't. I mean, I hope they're doing their research and
absolutely,
and getting everybody on board. But it's interesting because I haven't even thought of it as an option, but like you said, it is a real option.
It is.
Because up until last year, it was all defensive guys, and there are holes defensively to fill. But
Mhm.
again, you get to that path. All right, is 28. Like you make the argument why you shouldn't take a defensive player at 28 because it's like, is he really going to be a game changer at 28? You might as well get it. But then you're doing the same argument to take a receiver to be a game changer at 28, right?
Right,
So
right, right.
it's tick for tat and an interesting concept. But I haven't even thought or looked or know anybody other than receivers. And I
I
know that's
love it.
probably majority of the mafia, is right behind us with that. So people would be mad just for I think the shock value as well as the uneducated value of who is this guy, as opposed to all these receivers, But I don't know, man. It is possible, but I don't know. I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to hit receiver. They're going to stay with receiver. It's a need. It's the biggest need.
Yeah, I think that it's the biggest need in addition to the, not just Stephon Diggs trade, but I think that it was a need before that. I think that they have been passing on drafting one high long enough. I understand, again, Dalton Kincaid last year, I already explained that. I thought that that was more a matter of circumstance than anything else. And I just don't know if you can afford to neglect it again. Now neglecting it doesn't mean that you draft a defensive tackle or defensive end in the first round, and then you grab one in the second round. That's fine. And we'll get over it. They'll come into Friday morning shows, the WGR, and everybody will be freaking out. But they'll be looking right at the TV for draft night on Friday, round 2, and hoping that we go ahead and get a wide receiver in the second round as well. And everybody's watching the board. So I get how that goes. I'm just more concerned along the fact that I understand that it was gamesmanship. I understand that, maybe they don't necessarily believe it, but if they do believe it, that is some of my worst fears. And we had talked about that when we dissected the Stephon Diggs thing. And last week with Mama Monday and Justice General DT is that I don't want them to think that they don't need weapons around Josh or that they don't need the most weapons or the best weapons possible. I think that would be foolish of the Bills to do. And again, I'm giving credence to the fact, and I'm giving leeway to the fact that maybe he was just, pulling a little bit of gamesmanship to make sure that he keeps his cards close to his vest, so he keeps his leverage for next week. But if they really do believe that a wide receiver one is not essential, and I heard some, McDermott talking about spreading the ball around. There's value in spreading the ball around. You know what else has value? There's value in having a stud receiver that the entire defensive staff is staying up all night the night before trying to devise a game plan. And then he's got more attention. We talked about it already. Why did Gabe Davis have that crazy game in 13 seconds? He had that crazy game because of the fact that they were paying so much attention and they were so deathly afraid of Stephon Diggs cooking them that they actually, they allotted too many resources to Stephon Diggs. And then that obviously allowed Gabe to be on some one-on-one matchups, and he won his matchups that day and cooked those guys. So I think that they're walking a fine line if they really believe it. Again, I don't believe that they really do, but sometimes, you have to just sit back and when I heard him say that shit today, I was like, okay, he's fucking around. Like, he's just messing with me like that. He doesn't really believe that. And I do think that Brandon Beane's a great GM. I think he's very smart. I think he's very savvy. I just don't want them to get DT caught up in Josh. He's on the cover of Madden. Josh, he's got it. He's got it. He's more mature now and all this other stuff. Surround him with weapons. Make his job easier. Why do we want to make his job harder? And I think that if you come into this season with, Curtis Samuel, Mac Hollins, Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, Dawson Knox, and then insert round 2 pick or round 3 pick, I think that you're facing an uphill battle. Not that you can't be a successful offense or that you can't, put points on the board, but I just think that you might be a different formula. Maybe you're running the ball more. I'm not interested in running the ball more. I'm not interested in any of that type of stuff. So I think that you should keep it potent. When were we most deadly? When were we, everybody the most afraid of us was, a couple of years ago when we were that high-powered offense and we had Steph and we had, Emmanuel Sanders and John, we had all of the Colbys, we had all of these weapons for Josh to throw to. And we were just a problem for everybody to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, the matchup, you said it. Who's afraid, right? When I'm looking at it, who we're playing every week, it's always my fear is never the defense. It's never spreading the ball around on offense. My fear is, we got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle this week. How are we going to cover them? Oh, we got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase this week. How are we going to cover them? And the list is endless. There's stud receivers all over the league with good quarterbacks. I mean, Kansas City's the one exception, but everywhere else, the good teams have stud receivers and good quarterbacks. And yeah, that's exactly we're game planning as fans. We're worried about their receiving core. We're worried about them cooking us on receivers. And like you said it best, a couple of years ago when we were the scariest, it's because we could dart you up with capable stud wide receivers. So we got to get back there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Now, as we begin to wrap up tonight, the first ever Nickel City Crew mock draft. Again, DT and I are more novices on this whole thing, but I'm definitely interested in doing it. Shout out again to Scott Reed who hooked us up with the website. I think it's Draft Buzz, NFL Draft Buzz, and we're gonna get to it, DT. Now, I've got it set on rapid. I've got the randomness set where it's down, so it's we shouldn't see anything crazy. Trades are on. DT, and I'm going to hit this start button. I wish I had the screen share. These guys had screen share, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that. But we'll get on all that type of stuff in the future. DT, first round starts, and as we thought, Caleb Williams is the first pick off the board, and it's just going through right now. DT, Drake May has slid a little bit. Michael Penix goes to the Jets, so there is a little bit of randomness in there. You don't obviously, we can't necessarily pick the guys and where exactly we want them to go unless we take control of every team. But we're coming up on the Bills pick, and I'm going to let
what receivers are. What was the first receiver?
I literally am going there right now to let you know. The available prospects now for the Bills at receiver. A.D. Mitchell is there. Okay. Let's see here. We just got a trade offer for Josh Reynolds from the Broncos. We're going to reject that one. A.D. Mitchell is here. Troy Franklin's here. Your guy, Ladd McConkey's here. Xavier Legette, Keon Coleman, and then we start to get down Roman Wilson, and then Xavier Worthy. So I don't know what happened in this particular simulation. We're going to do it again a second time since it went so fast as well.
Where did
everybody
go?
So Adunze went. Actually, Washington picked Marvin Harrison Jr., which doesn't make any sense, but they did. And then Adunze went to Chicago at 9 to pair up with Caleb Williams. So we have pretty much the pick of the litter, DT. A.D. Mitchell, who we talk shit about. Ladd McConkey, we talk shit about. Legette, we talked about. Xavier Worthy, they're all here. Ricky Pearsall, who I heard some really good things. I'd love him in round 2. If we can, double dip for a receiver.
Where did Brian Thomas Jr. go? Where did Brian Thomas Jr.? When?
Yes, when? Let's see here. Brian Thomas Jr. went right before us. Yep, he went
27?
the pick before us to Arizona.
Wow. Yes. So I feel like if that's reality, the Bills move up to 25 and get him, right?
Okay,
that's what you would expect. Man, in this pool,
if they love him, yeah. You got the pick of the litter, though. You got the pick of all the guys that you talked about, that we talked about tonight.
I'm saying Xavier Legette.
Wow. What do you like about him? We're going to draft Xavier Legette.
Size.
Okay.
Mike Evans with speed.
Okay. And now, does it bother you that he's the one hit wonder, so to speak, that he's only had that 1 year of success?
He had some mid quarterbacks till last year. He got Spencer Rattler, who who can chuck it, and and that is, we got 1-7 who can chuck it. So
I like
plays in the SEC. I like the SEC transition. Going up against a lot of NFL corners all year in the SEC, and being South Carolina the down team in that league. It's but A.D. Mitchell's probably the top guy in there, but man, I do like Xavier Legette. What do you say?
I don't like Legette just because of the 1 year wonder thing makes me think of Aaron Maben. And then I get nervous about that type of stuff. I understand that it's not fair to compare prospects like that across years. And then I also get a little bit nervous because of that he's so much older. So because of that, if you're really nice, then you would probably be out. I understand that's changing now. It's going to be changing in the future because of NIL. But back when he was starting, there was no NIL. So if you were so good, why weren't you already coming out? He seems to be one of those super seniors, kind of like Bo Nix. Bo Nix has been in college for whatever. He's got the most starts of anybody ever in college football history. So sometimes that scares me because it just makes me think that there was something that was lacking if you were staying in school so long. I would probably pick, A.D. Mitchell, and then I would just fight with everybody. You know what I mean? Now Worthy is is worthy, so to speak. I think that he is worthy.
Okay.
I've heard enough people tell me that it's not just track speed. I'm just worried about the fact that, like I said, anytime I see him, I do think of Roscoe Parrish. I think of a more of a gadget guy, somebody that's not necessarily going to hold up because he's so small. And then that scares me because I'm not really interested in anybody that's small, that's niche. We already saw how they treated Deontay Hardy. We saw how they couldn't figure out how to use McKenzie, and the list kind of goes on. We haven't had really a true speedster since John Brown that was successful for the team. I mean, even Robert Foster, when he first got here, was doing really nothing for Josh Allen. I know it was younger in Josh's career, so that's not always apples to apples. But I sometimes just that's really why I don't like Ladd McConkey, to be honest. He's just small.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
I'm just a little bit worried about smaller guys.
On the roster, we got Andy Isabella. We got, now Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir kind of filling that slotty, gadgety role. And like you said, that's a good point. Isaiah McKenzie, Deontay Hardy, they could never make it work with that little gadget guy. So why go get another one? Yeah, I like A.D. Mitchell. I like A.D. Mitchell too. I'd say him or Leggett would be my top two in this situation.
All right. Now, I've done the draft again. Here again, check out NFLDraftBuzz.com. It's a cool little site. Again, shout out to Scott Reed who gave it to us. I turned the randomness down, DT. Okay, so this is more like what you can expect to see on next week Thursday because quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3. We're almost on the clock. And this is
can we trade?
This is we can. We just got offered to trade back. We would get an extra third rounder this year, 2 extra third rounder, I'm sorry, an extra fourth rounder. Next year's first round pick and a 5th round pick. Wow. To trade back with Baltimore. Baltimore really wants to trade pick number 28. Now we'll reject it right now just for the cause of the show, just so you know where everybody went. Quarterbacks 1, 2, 3. In this particular scenario, Drake May pulls off the shocker of all time. Chicago fooled us all. They took Drake May instead of Caleb Williams. He goes to Washington, and then Jaden Daniels goes to the Patriots. Marvin Harrison goes to Arizona at 4. Malik Neighbors right after him to the Chargers. Rome Odunze right after to the Giants. So this is kind of more of along the lines of an actual draft that you would see. And let's see the wide receivers available. Same thing. A.D. Mitchell, Ladd McConkey, Xavier Leggett, Xavier Worthy, all still on the board. So I think that Bills Mafia, Nickel City Crew, I think that I don't know. I don't know. I want to tell you that we're going to have a chance to get our guy, regardless if we sit back. I just know that the tendencies of our GM is not to just sit back. I just know that that's one of his major MOs is just to go up and get his guy. So I would anticipate.
Who's the best defensive player? Who's the best defensive player available?
Let's see. This one, it was for some reason Chop Robinson, and he's been mocked to the Bills. Listen to you say, "Ooh."
We are.
He's been mocked to the Bills before at that position. Again, a really twitchy guy. They actually compare him to a Von Miller, a young Von Miller out of Texas A&M, just kind of twitchy off the edge, got that bend, and gets to the quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see DT. This is fun. I mean, I have not been a draft guy.
With Austin Johnson and Daquan Jones. That's Chop Robinson, that Penn State, the Nittany Lion front.
Yeah, don't we have enough Nittany Lion stuff? Don't we have enough scars from that whole thing, like I talked about with Maven? So we'll see. It's fun. It's fun, DT. This time of year is fun. Keep in mind, Bills Mafia. Keep in mind, Nickel City Crew, that again, even the experts, even your McShays and your Kuipers, none of these guys know what these guys are going to be. So just keep that in the back of your mind. You are as apt to know exactly some of these guys that are going to be and things like that as anybody else. And the silly mocks that we just did, we have an opportunity to find out what's going to happen, but we don't know what these prospects are going to be. So just keep that in the back of your mind before you go crazy. Yes, Ladd McConkey could get picked by the Bills, and I will yell because he's small, and he may turn out to be Twinkle Toes and just like Antonio Brown, and then I'll just be the first one as happy as hell about it. Same thing with Worthy and Leggett and A.D. Mitchell, all those guys. So I just want to keep that in perspective for everyone that we don't know. So because we don't know, just give these guys some grace. Let them come in, learn the playbook, let them get acclimated to being a professional football player, and then we'll just go with it. As long as they're Bills, man, you know that we're going to back them. You know that we're going to be behind them. We're going to wish them all the best. But a lot of young men's lives are going to change next week, DT. And I for one, that's probably the number one thing I love about the draft is just the fact that their dreams are realized. All that hard work pays off finally, and it's something that you can really wrap your arms around.
I love it. This is the most intense draft in recent memory for both of us. So ready to lock in the next week. I'm gonna put the blinders up. I'm not gonna listen to much, and because what you thought 2 weeks ago, there's gonna be something that makes you think different.
Yep.
Now, and
already happened with me.
Yep. I haven't done extensive research by any means, but I like the research I've done. I like who I like. And I'm gonna kind of keep it quiet. Watch. We got good NHL and NBA playoffs starting next week to keep your mind off it until we get on the clock.
All right, sounds good to me. Again, man, out there, spread love, not hate. These were my Bills thoughts said out loud. We will skip next week. Please enjoy the draft. Again, from Motown, live from Motown next week. I think around 7 o'clock or so, the festivities kick off. You got the red carpet. You got all the guys swagged up. They'll have their jewelry on. They'll have the suits on. Everybody's going to be hugging Goodell like he's their long-lost brother. And everybody's going to have a good time. Families will be out there as well. And a lot of these guys will have an opportunity to really realize their dream. First round next week, Thursday, and then round 2 and 3, I think Friday. And then the rest of the draft is on Saturday. So enjoy the draft. Bills at pick 28 for now. Please out there, spread love, not hate. Hit them with a Go Bills, DT. Shout out to the viewers again. Almost 1,000 viewers, DT. We got a little hot streak going, man. We really appreciate. Shout out to Ricky and all the other guys that shouted out to us on the text chat tonight, Steph. And we just appreciate it, man. Like we said that we were going to do this, DT, and we're doing it, and it's coming along. Really, better than I even could have imagined to start. This is still the offseason. The season hasn't even started yet. So shout out, almost 1,000 viewers tonight. We really appreciate the love and the support out there for Nickel City Crew. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, straight up, love it. Love the crew getting bigger, and we're here to stay,
Wait
baby.
till the season
Let's rock
starts.
and roll.
About to go crazy.
Brandon Bean, our future is in your hands now. Go
yes,
Bills,
sir.
Baby. Go Bills.
Go Bills. I love it. Let's see if he stands pat. I doubt it. Gets itchy.